And we are live. Hello, everyone. I hope you are all doing well. Very happy to have you today for our BJ panel, actually, on a very specific topic as well, which is winning again scams in the blockchain gaming industry. Um, as metaverse blockchain game projects are gaining more and more attention, there is also a need to fight against misconception about the blockchain gaming industry. And actually, on that note, we released a BJ survey and reports last year, and when asked about the most common misconception about the industry, 59% of the respondents said that users who do not understand blockchain gaming assume that it is a Ponzi scheme or scam. So, and actually, on that note, we will be releasing the next one for this year. Keep in touch for that. But there is a real common goal shared by companies who needs to ensure the safety of the open world they are creating for their users, but how to identify digital threats, which partner to identify as well in the space. And to answer those questions, I'm very happy to welcome our speakers who will be able to share the expertise with use case as well. So, hi guys, I hope you're doing well. The first question, to give some context to everyone, will be to introduce yourself. Alec, would you like to start?
Yeah, of course, guys. Hey, Alec Harris, Managing Director at Halo Privacy. And thank you for the invite. Good to be here with friends and colleagues. And by way of a little background, so I personally got into the crypto space in 2016, and that intersected with some things we were doing professionally using Bitcoin and Monero to further some privacy efforts and acquire infrastructure. And more recently, in the last 3 years or so, we've spent a lot of time investigating and trying to counterdict scams in the space. And those are of a wide variety. Some of them are impersonations of people we all know from crypto. Some of it is appropriation of brands or logos, identities, products. And some of it is kind of more what we would think of as rank and file scams like phishing and smishing. But it's pretending to be the CEO, pretending to be the executive. And really what we found is there's a large volume of these types of scams. It comes from all over the world. And there is quite a disparity in the type of sophistication that we see. So some is very opportunistic and bot energized and just kind of going after low hanging fruit. Some of it has substantial infrastructure and maturity and organization and a lot of manpower behind it as well. And so from the Halo standpoint, what we do is we use our infrastructure, our virtual personas, our skills, and our open source intelligence team to really interact with these scams. We want to get involved. We want to get inside the organization, understand how they operate so that we can more effectively take down their infrastructure, find out their bank accounts, their crypto wallets, their WhatsApp profiles, what domains are they using, what Telegram chats did they create, what support bots are they using. And they use all of these things so that the investigation ends with the infrastructure takedown. And this is where it's been such a fantastic opportunity to work with BrandShield as well. And Itai will say more about that.
Yeah, perfect. Itai, could you introduce yourself as well?
Hi everybody. My name is Itai Gilmore. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at BrandShield. BrandShield deals with digital risk protection, with focus on brands and companies. We're dealing with blockchain industry, crypto since 2017. We were in the good old days of the ICOs, always on a position of protecting customers, protecting companies and brands. Our technology platform detects online threats, and we know how to take them down off the air. That's what we're doing for Sandbox, and we'll talk a little bit about it later on.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna have the opportunity to go through this use case with this Sandbox, and actually, very pleased to have Sebastian. Hi, Sebastian. Hope you're doing well. Our dear president of the BGA. But obviously, could you dare introduce yourself?
Yes, of course, Flavian, with great pleasure. So today I'm not going to speak with my hat of president of the Blockchain Game Alliance. Flavian has been doing a great job as being the face and the community manager that keeps the BGA a very active and engaged community of video game companies and more. And now today I'm going to share our experience as well as the Sandbox, one of the open, decentralized virtual world that is part of like this open metaverse, and that because it is not only a pioneer project, but also one that now has gathered a large amount of users, is very often the target of like those phishing or scam attempts. And so I like to share our experience around like what we're doing actively to protect our users against those attempts of like phishing their data, how to learn more about like key principles of security, and through, for example, our partnership with Ledger as well, and try to encourage as many actors as possible in the industry to also raise awareness about those issues, to protect more of the users, make the user experience overall more secure, more satisfying, and we will all benefit from it in the industry in general. So, yep.
Yeah. Yeah, before going through these use cases between BrandShields and the Sandbox Itai, I wanted to ask you a few questions. You mentioned that a little, but what I would say, what kind of threats do you protect your customers from? And have you noticed new brand protection trends during COVID? It is still relevant right now.
So actually, COVID was a huge peak in online scams, basically because that everything offline was shutting off, and all the scammers have moved on and accelerated everything that we're doing online. It in the COVID, it was across the boards, and it didn't stop. So we had issues with COVID vaccinations for Moderna. We had issues with different scams, banks, but the crypto one was booming, from all kind and sorts. We're protecting a lot of crypto exchanges. We're protecting NFT marketplaces, others. Everything was booming, and what really you could see is first the amount, the velocity. So we saw an increase of hundred of percents in the volume, in the velocity of the scams. The variety. So on top of the velocity, variety. It could be, as Alex said, it could be smishing. It could be we are impersonating over social media, impersonating on websites, creating website scams, and then third dimension was, I think, the depth. So if it used to be small email, email campaign, easy, and then it became a phishing website. Now the scams have become very elaborated. I mean, a total social facade, a social engineering. Somebody's as creating a social media, right, of a CEO, creating few social media, and then linking to a website, and then going with a Telegram channel, all right, and then working with the consumers or working on other executives in the industry. So the whole facade was really complicated. It was hard to find. Luckily, our platform finds connections between these. So if we take down, if we find something on a phishing website, we can connect it to Facebook pages that is a link to it, or Telegram channels, and then moving into different blockchain kind of domains, which is something new about, and which are fake wallets, etc. So the question is yes. During the COVID, three dimension: velocity, depth, and variety.
Okay, very interesting to note. And actually, if we go really through this collaboration that you had and you are having with the Sandbox, and maybe question for Sebastian to start with. Obviously, we know the Sandbox, but in terms of based on the experience that you're providing in the Sandbox, could you tell us more about the challenges that you are facing, and maybe to try to explain how you dealt with that with the BrandShield?
Absolutely. Well, we're definitely seeing like a wide range of like threats in general for our community, because we have a large community of over 23,000 landowners and many artists, creators who own either a little bit of sand, a little bit of various NFTs like Avatar from Snoop Dogg, Steve Aoki, or even content made by other creators. And like we've seen, maybe I can start enumerating the threads, but we've seen like fake channels over Telegram, like large channel of over 100,000 users appearing overnight and looking like exactly the same as ours. So this is very misleading for many members who like just search in Telegram the Sandbox and happen to fall into the wrong channel typically. We've seen threads around like comments on social media. So whenever we make posts on Twitter, for example, or Discord, we will see automatically a bunch of like bots automatically posting videos or fake links for various claims that are obviously phishing and scam websites, whose main purpose is like to steal. Once you connect your wallet on those websites, you get your NFT stolen automatically. We've seen a lot of like copycat of websites, people like setting up URL like sandbox.io, Sandbox, like a little mix on the letter, or sandboxgame.com, or thesandbox.game. Like they've tried many variations around like trying to mislead users who are just Googling to find sandbox.game. And the worst is like platform like Google actually allow the scammers and hackers to pay to promote at the top their result. And we see like a lot of users just click on the sponsored link on Google, believing because it is sponsored that is an official link, which is not the case. And so like Google is in a way like assisting the hackers, assisting the phishing and the scamming of people who are not finding the main sandbox.game website on the first result like they should, but maybe on third or fourth position because of those paid sponsored results. We've seen people who also like attempt to be one of the key executive of the team or founders and message others via either private message on Telegram, Discord, or Twitter, faking being like a community manager, a customer support, or even the CEO or CEO of the company, and asking for like private trade of NFT or urgent payments. Typically, those are like threats that are easy to recognize, but still could be misleading. We've seen blast emails pretending to be official Sandbox websites, distributing a new beta version of the Sandbox toward a limited number of users. Some, unfortunately, did download that client. It's a Trojan horse for the keylogger, something that will be basically stealing your credential or your password, or once you connect to MetaMask with your browser, will be stealing that information so that then they can unfortunately access all your NFTs and important crypto and other elements. So as you can see, there's a wide range of threats. We've seen some of them are very sophisticated in the effort that have been deployed into like looking like legitimate. The worst we've seen is like Instagram. Typically, our Instagram accounts, the security of Discord and Twitter have been pretty good in terms of two-factor and other elements. Instagram somehow failed many times with the 2FA, and hackers have been able to like get access for a limited amount of time and use that account to promote a fake link in the description, fake video post with those links as well, and even reaching out to like a community of like bored ape yacht club whales to try to do like private deals with them. Thankfully, all those threats have had quite a little impact in our community, and the main reason is because with Sandbox, one, I've been working early on with BrandShield as a leading partner to constantly monitor, remove those fake accounts on social media, fake websites, and other threats that we've seen on Telegram and Discord and social media. But also we've spent a great amount of time into like warning our community on only looking at sandbox.game and official source. We've even created in partnership with Ledger like an experience that is teaching them about security within Sandbox. And we've done a lot of learn and earn academies with a broad range of partners within the crypto ecosystem that keep raising awareness about like things we do, things we don't, and how we usually communicate, and how to check something is officially from Sandbox or not.
Yeah, I did really enjoy the experience. The ledger experience on the Sandbox was very informative and very educative as well. And on your side, Itai, do you have any narrative through that partnership with collaboration with the Sandbox?
Um, yeah. So first of all, it's really I don't know if I'm freezing or not, but
You're not freezing, just the image, but we can hear you very well.
brilliant. So you'll excuse me on the, but I think Sandbox is a very good example on how and Sebastian actually described it really good. The variety of scams that we're dealing and the volume is huge. Sandbox is the amount is enormous. We saw, by the way, a pick on, was it on March, I think, just on the launch of there was such a huge peak. All right, so people were waiting, literally were waiting um, for the launch to they created infrastructure. It's not you know it's very organized, all right, to the level to the verge of organized crime. People were creating infrastructure, buying domains, creating buying a fake social media, changing their name, creating infrastructure, and ready to launch it. And we definitely see, if you don't treat it immediately, it's growing. If you manage to if you manage to deal with it and you're consistent, the effect is it's manageable. So you can control it. You're right, Sebastian. So you cannot eliminate it, but it's manageable. And the bad guys are bad guys. They will go wherever they will go wherever it's easy. So
I
Sebastian,
think
right?
Yeah, I totally agree with that comment. Like there is a really important aspect, like what hackers are actually playing through is like the reactivity speed. Like basically they have a certain window of opportunity between the moment of time like they post something online and they get their first victims, and when like a reaction comes from like the moderators, the community manager, or the monitoring solution that automatically send requests to take down some of those websites, to take down those fake accounts. And I think working with BrandShield and having like professional customer support and moderators team constantly monitoring 24/7, it's the goal is to reinsure users, but also like to make sure like by being ultra reactive to those threats, we limit the impact of the threat and scammers, and hence it makes less interesting business for them to deploy such effort when they are not able to capture or steal NFTs anymore. And we're glad that this
Mm-hmm.
is efficient. This is really an efficient way to fight against it, even though like there will be always this cat and mouse game in a way. If you let it grow and grow and take time to react, then you actually giving in to those the attacker, the hacker, the stealer, and you're not doing a good job for protecting your users and community.
Yeah. Actually, on that note, Itai, again, back to you. So we're talking about any operation leading to people taking over the digital identity of the sandbox. But if we want to narrow that through the gaming space, maybe my question could be, how is your solution relevant to gaming companies per se?
So what we're doing with other companies, and sometimes we work with Hello Privacy, and I think it's really interesting to see how the but what we're doing is we have, and that Sebastian actually mentioned, we have a proactive solution that when we deploy it in place, our technology actually scans the internet. All right, so and it's intense. All right, we bring new domain registrations, continuously. All right. We analyze website content because a lot of things are being changed. Website did that, and the bad guys are changing it after a day, and we're monitoring content changes. We're monitoring social media. All right. We're monitoring mobile apps, APKs, official mobile apps like Google, like Apple, and even paid ads. And this is what Sebastian actually mentioned. A lot of paid ads, both on Google, even on Facebook, sometimes are are used to scam. Everything is about creating traffic and diverting it to the into the bad guys' place where it's. So all of these we are monitoring, detecting. More than this, BrandShield has actually quite an interesting 3 layers of the of detection on website. So it's not just typo squatting, not just website and fraud and content, but also we have a website copy detector. That's a JavaScript that we deploy on the website, and it gives real-time alerts on if somebody's creating a phishing kit or copycat a website of the subject. So the first thing is about detection. All right, it's about monitoring and detection and finding this stuff. Now, after we find it, there are a few ways to deal with it, and you can work with them. First of all, in some cases we work with, for example, with Halo Privacy, so they really investigate it. All right, if you want to catch the bad guys, they can try to unmask the bad guy's identity, and I can talk about it. About as a first remediation, first of all, for example, on websites, we can block it. All right. All these red screens that so we report it to antivirus, to anti-spam, to browsers. We block it. That is very important for the consumers, right? Because then it limits the effect of the scam dramatically. We talk about Google, we talk about Microsoft, then they put it on the Defender. That like definitely covers around 80% of the consumers. All right. And that's what it's all about. It's like gaining trust from the consumers. That's what we're doing it, right? Um, that's the first remediation. It's immediate. The second one is taking it down because we don't want it there. We want to, and we want the bad guys to understand that we're fighting them. Blocking is not enough. All right. Believe me, they're not suffering enough from it. If you take it down, they have start having problems with registrars, with DNS providers, and we're fighting all of them. We're hunting them on the registrars, on the hosting provider, on the ISPs, on the DNS providers. If it's Google emails, etc., we're finding complaint to Google. We're closing the Gmails. If it's PPC, we're literally monitoring PPC ads. All right, and we're reporting to Google and we're taking them down. So we are blocking their traffic generators. So as well as social media, all right? Social media is huge.
Yeah.
Discord, Telegram, with all of them we have relationship. We file a report, they take it down. All right. Let's not talk about Twitter and how slow they are, by the way, especially these days. But but it's working. And we monitor it, and we keep on monitoring this, because if a website is down on one hosting provider, we'll go to another hosting provider, and we're monitoring it. If it's gone from one hosting provider, we'll hunt it to the next one and next one. You know what? It's really tiring to be someone that scams a BrandShield customer. They move to someone else.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's very interesting to go through that details. And actually, maybe, Sebastian, I would like you, before going through the use case with Alec and with Hello Privacy, maybe you could guide us, Sebastian, on these figures that we have right in the screen. If you can talk about it, what were the results?
Sure. Maybe just one thing I like to rebound on
Sure.
about what Itai was saying. Like, just imagine the amount of effort that we would need to deploy ourselves if we were to be directly in charge of like the monitoring, the writing of all those takedown requests, and the submitting. Like we'll probably need like 2-3 people, sometimes more full time, plus lawyers to actually constantly like do that ongoing effort. And instead of at the size of our company, and Sandbox is already pretty big compared to most of like the blockchain gaming companies, like we better focus on like, let's build great game, let's build great product, and let's give to those guys like the service that they are they've built like a great tech solution and platform to automate, while also like they handle all the hassle of the admin and paperwork and so on. And that's why like BrandShield is a great partner. It's a combination of both. And here what you can see is like basically those are numbers provided by BrandShield. My interpretation is like there's been a number of threats over that period of time. That's like 209 threats with a very significant success rate in certain countries like US. Overall, like anyway, 99% success rate, 95% success rate is still a very high rate. That means like the effort of like submitting a takedown request for removing a paid or sponsored account or a fake account over social media, it's efficient because it means there is response behind. We're lucky to evolve within like a framework of tech companies that also like are listening to these requests and are reactive to them most of the time, like we described. And that allows like the reaction to the threat to work. And I'm glad to see like across the board and across the countries, it's even like countries of like Russia, for example, which is typically higher range of like threat from hackers and scammers, etc. Online, as like a 94% success rate, which is like very good and on par with the US actually at 94.2.
Yeah, we're focusing here on website, but obviously the next slides was really focused on social media, with each social media regarding that the reported items. What could be your analysis?
Here, well, basically, we know that Web3 lives a lot within Twitter and Telegram, and it's a shame that those are the two lagging platforms in terms of like success rates of threat and removal. So, in a way, there is improvement to be done by both platforms. I think Discord as well is lacking on this, but Discord is not doing a great job to protect users. Like we've all seen like all those direct message and account that looks strictly the same as like real moderators, and almost got us on some offers. So I'm glad that traditional Web2 media that we usually criticize because they are part of the old model, somehow they do a better job at protecting the threats than some other like Twitter, Discord, or Telegram typically.
Yeah, Itai, I don't know if you want to add anything related to these results as well.
No, I agree. I think that one of the key elements here is that indeed social media are problematic, right? So Facebook is really nice on this. Twitter is horrible, all right. Discord are hard to, and you know, it's self-regulating, all right. So we can see like Elon Musk, he decided not to enforce or not to do or to give, so he can decide whatever he wants. And if the platform is not secure, we have limited leverage on them. I think this is what, and we see that a lot, Alec. I think don't we see that a lot in many cases, right?
Yeah, I mean, and the ones you mentioned are the prime offenders, right? The more infrastructure, the more in-house security operations the company has, the likelihood of us being successful on our end is higher. And so, you know, if Elon Musk comes and reduces the staff of Twitter by 75%, maybe it's good for business, right? But there aren't as many people inside to communicate with about, the findings of investigations and scans. So really, the reality is, if every one of these social media platforms was moderating themselves, none of us would have a job, right? But they don't moderate themselves. And it's really not in their economic incentive to moderate themselves, because even scams are users and they drive activity. So, they'll moderate when they're forced to, but you kind of have to force them.
While working on with your clients, Alec, do you find the same kind of challenges that BrandShield with the Sandbox have known during their collaboration? What kind of similarities you could find with what you are doing yourself with Hello Privacy?
Oh, yeah, 1,000%. Everything that was said, we've seen it all, and the variety is very broad. But one of the interesting things that I'll just split out a little bit is there are certain scams that go after people that are already in crypto, and so they're trying to find them in crypto venues and impersonate crypto platforms, and that has a certain flavor. But then there's another brand of scam where they're actually going for people who aren't in crypto, and they're trying to entice them in. And sometimes those are more successful, because at least if you already have some familiarity of how blockchains work, and you own some NFTs and you own some Bitcoin, right? You have a little bit of defenses against some of these scams. But what we see is, for instance, romance scams, where someone will meet someone on a dating platform, and they'll find someone who's in their 50s, who was recently divorced, who maybe doesn't have any familiarity with crypto, but they've heard of it. And they'll use those as victims, because they're much easier to lure in, because they don't know the difference between, what's true and what's false. And in those cases, what we see is there's a lot of what's called rapport building. So they'll meet them on the dating website, they'll find them on social media, and they'll spend months getting to know them and building up trust. And then all of a sudden, 90 days in, they say, oh my gosh, my son was in a car accident. We're traveling in Thailand. We need $20,000 in Bitcoin in order to get out, or can you help us? I'm trying to sell some of these NFTs. I've got 3 Bored Apes. It's worth $750,000. I just need to sell one of them. Can you, work with me on that? Right. And so the trust is already there. And it's very unfortunate, but these are some of the most successful types of scams, are the romance ones. More time goes into it, but usually more money comes out of it. And so just because someone isn't in crypto doesn't mean that they couldn't be targeted by these. And it's much harder to educate them, because they're not in these conversations. They're not listening to these webinars. So anyway, that's just an additional comment.
Yeah, very clear. Yeah, please.
The social engineering aspect is definitely the toughest to crack. And like you say, like once like you've started to give, we've seen that beyond crypto. Actually, I think that I've even seen movies of people calling secretaries of directors asking for urgent payments and other situations like that. And that's typically how like the most advanced scam will work. So like this is another level. And that's why typically you would have, like in most company anyway, you will have like a certain number of like security training, security guideline, and even like something called like CISO, like a chief information security officer in your companies, that reinforce all the practice, what you accept to download, not download, like how you communicate with exteriors, how you can recognize what is a typical framework for a threat, and what like a regular person will never ask you to do, in this case, like asking you for your help on payments, for example.
Yeah. Going back to you, actually, Alex, on that note as well, trying to understand better Hello Privacy and what you're doing, could you, and based on that slide as well, if you will, could you tell us what types of attacks happen on the metaverse?
Yeah, so I'll talk you through a particularly interesting case. This was from about 2 years ago, and this was in collaboration with BrandShield as well, with a crypto company that you guys would all know. And so what happened was, and this reinforces what Sebastian and Itai were saying, which is when you start these projects, you will find some long-running scams that have had a lot of time to mature, and they really actually look real because no one has interdicted them. And so they have 3-year-old Telegram chats, and they have social media profiles that have been around since 2017 because no one did anything about it. And so as you start these programs and advance them, the scams become much more recent and they don't have as much time to look real or sophisticated. And so that's one of the benefits of having these programs. But in this case, it was at the beginning of a program. We found this, it was actually 3 different virtual personas. They were men in their, or they were purporting to be men in their mid 50s, really good looking guys, you know, living on the Mediterranean coast somewhere with a nice house and a nice car. And they had multiple social media accounts, right? So they had Twitter and Instagram, Telegram. You know, they looked like real people, and they had a history of photos, right? So there was photos in the winter and the summer and the spring, that there had been time that went into this to develop this. And what ultimately they would do is they would use these good looking personas, and they would go on dating sites, and they were looking for women who were middle-aged and typically would have kids, or maybe were divorced or had never been married, and they were seeking out some kind of vulnerability in these people. So they would use these social media profiles. And here's where we got very interesting. So they would connect with a woman, and there were victims in Germany, in the US, in the UK, in Japan, in Sweden, in Australia, right? This was global, multi-year. And what they did is they would build a relationship. And at some point they would say how they work at an investment fund, or they're a fund manager, or they're allocating capital for a venture capital firm, and they have some interesting opportunities. And I've seen the screenshots from some of these victims. So the victim would be enticed, but they would say, "Oh no, it's, you know, it's not really for you. I just wanted to tell you what I do for work," and they make them wait a little bit longer. And ultimately, what they would do is they would send a fake contract that actually had the brand and the signature and all of the right-looking legal clauses affecting some kind of investment procedure. Usually it's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, platinum tier. You know, in the platinum tier, you get the most returns, and they get you in the hook. But what we hadn't seen before, and this really gets into the metaverse issue, is midway through the scam, they were actually using deep fakes, and they would get on a quick video call using the deep fake to really finalize it, because a lot of this happens over chat. And the women eventually would say, you know, before I send you 50 grand, before I send you 5 BTC, you know, we should do a call. I'd love to see you. And usually that's where a difficult point for a scam, because there isn't a real person behind it. And so they use some deep fake software. They would get on a Zoom call, or you know, some kind of video platform. They would have a quick chat, you know, before you could see that it was fake, finalize it. And we saw multiple women who lost 6 figures, either in crypto or in USD or euro. And these are devastating losses for people. So none of these victims were particularly affluent. This is a life-changing loss for them. And so what we did at the end is we created a female that looked like a likely victim, and we inserted that female into the scammer network, and we started interacting with them. And we would send a little bit of Bitcoin so that we could see where the money flowed. And we would try to figure out what domains they were using. And ultimately, there were multiple people in the organization. And so over the course of about 45, 60 days, we were able to map the various organizational participants, and there was a little bit of a hierarchy. And at the end, we worked with BrandShield to, I think we got Telegram, WhatsApp, Bitcoin wallets, Ethereum wallets, Monero wallets, couple different domains, chatbots, Instagram, Facebook. This was a really big one, but at the end, it all came down. Everything came down in probably the course of 72 hours. And that's a very successful outcome, but it's a really sad story, right? There was 3 years of victims before we got to that point. And the credit goes to the company that we were working for actually investing and doing this kind of thing, because not everyone does that. But ultimately, what happens is those victims show up at that company and they say, "Hey, I thought I had 100,000 shares. Hey, I thought I bought, you know, some of your ICO tokens," or whatever it is. And they don't want that because that's bad for their brand. Unfortunately, these types of things happen all the time.
And I must add to this one, and this
Please.
is with Sandbox, this is a good example. I mean, Sandbox invest in this, right? In protecting itself, but its customers, and this is a commitment. You know, this is a commitment. This is a lot of work, guys. But not just for us that you know take the bread, but for the company itself. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of resources. It's commitment. It's commitment to make the community safe, right, Sebastian? It's like it's something you need to invest a lot, and not everybody does that. And as Alex said, I think that touche to anybody that actually decide to do that, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and I was thinking like trust is essential, and like it's like the case you just described is even more terrible. Like I cannot imagine like a company that suddenly gets people at the front of their door asking like for a share that they don't have. Like everyone is losing and losing trust. It's bad for the company. It's bad for the people who's been scammed. And so in a way, like it's creative an overall negative impact because those people they're going to share story. The press will like to cover them as well, and we all. So I think like again going back to the idea of like the importance of like educating and protecting with active measure against those threats is a must-have to provide like more safety and confidence from regular user within the space. And I like we see in general over social media, like when a big whale or like a big influencer got scammed and loses NFT, a lot of people uh, like share his story and so on. But we should not forget all the case of like those more regular people who doesn't have like that kind of aura and still like will represent the mass that we're trying to bring in into crypto and might be lost forever users because of like the damages that's been carried away
Right.
here. It's very hard to gain back the trust once someone has been the victim of a scam. So maybe that's a topic we could also talk like the recovery after what we can do to gain that trust back and rebuild.
Yeah,
I want to
please,
say
Ita.
something about this trust thing. We're serving BrandShield serves on it dozens and dozens of crypto companies, and this trust thing is something that repeats itself from everybody. It's a new industry, all right. It's in the headlines, all right. And for good stuff, for bad stuff, you hear you hear the news. Everybody that we work is committed to this, has kind of a vision, or needs to be committed to this trusting. Because if they, as Sebastian said, they're not just losing trust in a certain brand or a certain game or a certain company. They lose trust in an industry, in a sector. So I think that in a way we all share a vision, and we should all share a vision, and even fighting this crusade, that I think that it can be won. Uh, um, we can win it if everybody will be committed to it. We can win it. I know for a fact we're working with other sectors, and we're working with organization, right? Like the Blockchain Gaming Association, working with a pharmaceutical association, and we can win it because we serve such association. We serve multiple companies, and if you fight it, it is manageable. It's not disappearing, but it's manageable. And I think this is something that everybody, I would love that everybody to take from me. Let's fight it. Let's not neglect it. It's something that we can win and should win. I don't think that we have a choice, right?
Yeah, can I add a little to that? So you're exactly right, and I think some of the messaging has to separate out the scam from the industry, right? Like these scams occur in crypto and they occur in pharma, and there's fake genes, and everything is ripped off and impersonated. And so when the whole Bernie Madoff scandal happened, people didn't blame market makers, right? They blamed Bernie Madoff. And I think we should blame Kyle and Sue from 3AC, and we can blame SBF from FTX, right? But that's not the fault of blockchain. That has nothing to do with decentralized protocols. That is criminal activity of humans who have avarice and ambition. And so what we also see, right, is people who really authentically come to the space because they care about the principles, right? And they care about creating environments like the Sandbox for creators, and they care about censorship resistance. That's what's important. And so that has nothing to do with the scam. And in fact, some of the investigations we do are furthered because of the transparency of blockchain. We can see more into the investigation. We can find out what was going on. There's actually less to hide because of the transparency and the ability to trace and monitor activity on a lot of these chains. And so I would argue we know more about some of these scams than we would if they were happening in other industries. but it's going to take repeating that message over and over by a lot of people for a lot of time before that really sinks in. But I think it's super important, and everyone on this call is doing that. But I'll say it every day, right? There's a big difference between the scam and the industry.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Through your examples, then expertise and discussion with your clients, it's very easy to see that building trust is exactly what you said, Itai. But I might have two questions in one to each one of you, which could be, so we know we are the BGA, we try to help companies, a lot of small companies who try to build these new worlds around blockchain gaming, and not a lot of them feel responsible, feel concerned about building these trusts in terms of security. Is it a matter of size of the company when you need to take into account these challenges that you just mentioned? Do you need to be the Sandbox to take care of this? In terms of accessibility, could you tell us more about it? Maybe Sebastian, starting with you, and maybe the others as well, Itai and Alec.
I think like there's no minimum size at which point you need to start taking care of like educating your community and protecting your community. And the fact that you can work by outsourcing it to a partner like BrandShield, which do all the heavy lifting work for you, basically shows that like even a small project with a very nimble team could actually activate that. And the earliest you do that, the better it is. Like even if you haven't yet built a full product, you just launch your first NFT collection, it's good to show and make sure that like the values that your community will hold in their wallet is in a way safe, and you avoid to have like your image or brand image and community tarnished by already like some users getting their NFT stolen and so on. Typically, I think it's important as well to make sure, like typically most community work over Discord. We've seen a lot of like those scammers start by like infiltrating Discord channels and Telegram channels. So like that's the place like most projects will start with, and then as they grow progressively, they will extend to like threat of like websites and email list and so on and so on. It should be a constant topic to keep in mind for every project, specifically now like that we have asset of value, like that's the key.
I will jump in here and say there is no minimum size, period. BrandShield has different programs fitted to different customer sizes, and we have sizes that are just in the beginning and starting and bring us in the concept idea, and we have customers like Sandbox or huge enterprises. All right, there is no minimum, and you can start slowly and grow in terms of depth, in terms of variety, in terms of volume. We literally have small customers, big customers, large enterprise, the biggest one that you could think, and it's our mission. It's a commitment. It's something that all of us, as part of this community, as part of this space, must do constantly. And as Sebastian said, we do all the heavy lifting. Well, we will do most of the heavy lifting. So it's not a burden of a company. It's not an overhead. We can take care of it.
Yeah, one thing I would add is that what we find is sometimes companies that are smaller and they're trying to extend their runway with the capital they have, or they don't think that the scam risk is quite as big because they're not as visible. Will do is they'll use their social media team or their marketing team to kind of like do manual searches, and I actually think that's a great starting point. You have to start some awareness and figure out, hey, what is the threat? What are we seeing? And the other thing that I think is important is having a culture in the whole organization that is a defensive culture, and that is because everyone is interacting with different parts of the industry, and we see everything from payroll scams that come in through the HR department, right, through marketing scams, through investor relations, right? Like there is no department of an organization that is immune to it. And so just having a little bit of awareness, a little bit of training, hey, we all need to be vigilant. We all need to watch for these things. That's a great starting point. And then, as you build into these programs, and Itai is right, you could start at any point, but right, if you aren't sure you want to go out and really build a third-party program, just start raising awareness. And I think you'll come to a conclusion that there's unfortunately more scamming than anyone really thinks. The volume is very high.
Very interesting. And I think related to that, my last question for each one of you will be related to can there be a metaverse without you actually BrandShield or Halo or similar companies? Do you feel like you will need you forever based on what you will be able to provide?
Seb, what do you think?
Well, I think like BrandShield built part of the Blockchain Game Alliance. The mission of the Blockchain Game Alliance, being to offer more value for all the members of the BGA. Like we should definitely look at something that maybe like some free trial, maybe some little discount on the service, or something that could benefit of all BGA members through workshop or mutualized resource. How about that?
Definitely. I think that with dealing with other industries, which are much more veteran and much more many years in the word, I can see that we're having our business is security, and security never goes, never goes away. You always need it. It can have different forms or shapes, but I think that for keep on the trust, keep on making businesses this industry and make it flourish, I guess we will need to work together, all of us as different stakeholders, in order to keep this word safer and more protected, and to maintain the trust that we have from our community members.
Yeah, agreed. The only thing I would add is that, so a lot of the scams we see now are, text-based. It's based on information we see on the screen or messages on social media. And we want to trust those things as humans, but we really trust what we see and what we hear. And so once you enter the metaverse and you have visual representations of people and you have auditory experiences of them, if you have an advanced scam, if you have the sophisticated ability to do those impersonations, I think it could be much more effective. However, I also think the importance of cryptography becomes even greater, right? To provide cryptographic evidence of authenticity. And that's what NFTs do. That's what, UTXOs do. We already have the infrastructure inside the community to do this. But I think we will see some very successful scams that impersonate people in a metaverse, or they impersonate venues in the metaverse, or they impersonate properties in the metaverse. Hey, I bought the Eiffel Tower, right? Well, which, did you, right? And so I think we haven't fully appreciated what we'll see, but I also think that we will continue to see community policing, right? Like we're seeing today, because ultimately the more of us in the community want this to be successful than don't. It's just that the ones that don't tend to be a little noisier. And so, this conversation today has been a great contribution.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect conclusion as well. I think it was a perfect contribution to what we could say in terms of fighting scams around blockchain gaming through everything you just said. So I would like to thank every one of you to share your knowledge and experience and use cases around what you've built so far. Won't be the last one for sure, and we'll be happy to have you again on that live panel. And thank you very much. Wish you a very good day.
Cheers,
Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care.